about a documentary that was shown recently. It's about an hour long. It's a part of the Disney Plus Marvel 616 episodes they had for season 1. And on this one, they talked about Japanese Spider-Man. And it was a real fascinating documentary that I do recommend checking out. And the one thing I left with the impression after I watched it was a lot of respect for the people who made this series a reality. Because you know, when you look back on it, it looks cheesy, it looks corny to see this 1970s show that was only shown in Japan. But when you see this documentary, you gain a new respect for how they made this series. I think the only other live action Spider-Man back then was that 1970s movie with what was it, Nicholas Hammond. And Stan Lee didn't like that movie, and then it became a TV series because it started out as a movie. And the thing is, that TV series, I thought it was okay. I liked it for what it was back then, but it didn't have the supervillains. It didn't have that comic feel to it. But this Japanese Spider-Man, it was really fascinating when you watch a documentary of how it was put together. It was only Stan Lee, the guy who was narrating most of it, who, you know, was the liaison between America and Japan, and this Japanese head of the company. And it was just 3 people making this deal after hours meetings, like handshake agreements. You know, back then, that's how deals were made, one-on-one agreements. Today, you have 50-page, 100-page, 200-page plus documents with lawyers everywhere just to cut a deal. You know, that's how times have changed. Back then, you could just meet one-on-one, very few people, and get a deal done. Today, tons of lawyers and tons of paperwork to get the same thing. So, you know, they made the Japanese Spider-Man was part of the reason American comic books do not sell well there is how we like comic books versus how they like manga. It just reads differently. It's a totally different understanding and appreciation. It's American comics usually don't translate well there. And the Spider-Man comics and the Marvel comics did not. And when they cut the TV deal, they had to use elements, like first of all, they needed the Spider-Man robot for sponsorship of the person who made the toys. And so you needed the car, you needed the robot, and things like that just to get the deal done, to sell merchandise. And the monsters, a lot of Japanese mythology, they had to do that stuff because this is what the Japanese people and the children would like. If you put the Americanized stuff and made it a Japanese show, it probably would not be popular. It wouldn't work because what we like is different than what they like. And so they had to make what would get over and that their audience would like. And this was on a shoestring budget, so cheap that they had to do everything, which makes you appreciate it more, the fact that there was almost no real budget. And they did what they ended up doing is kind of spectacular. One of the things that you will have to appreciate is back then, no blue screens, no green screens, no CG effects. When the guy is upside down on the ceiling, climbing up a wall, going down a wall, holding on to a car, all of these are effects, and what you see is practical. It's a real person doing these things, and you wouldn't even do that now because some of that stuff was quite dangerous. Literally just on a rope, scaling up a building and pretty high up. This is just a rope holding him into the car. You know, you wouldn't do that stuff today. And No way. Today it's all CG, a map below you, you're like maybe 12 inches off the ground. It's all computer graphics. But then it was practical. And these people were in physical danger doing some of this stuff. And it worked. You know, that the surprising part to me was they had the actual actors. And you have to read a lot of subtitles though. That's the only thing, Japanese subtitles, if you don't like that. Because that's about half of the episode. But, you know, there is, when you watch it, I have to admit, the Japanese Spider-Man, it's, you get a new respect for it. Because don't forget, this was made in the 1970s. And it was on a cheap budget. And so what they accomplished with what they had to work with was quite good for its time, you know. And so that's the impression I had after I watched this documentary. It's 616 on the Disney Plus channel. It's one of the episodes in it. And so that's my review of it. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.